just the other day, do we happen to have the clip from the prediction show where I made a prediction of what was coming next year on energy? Can we play that, please? I think in 2026, 2025 was the year, as I said, that we started really understanding AI and what is coming to some degree. And we understood, energy is going to be a problem. I think 2026 is going to be the first year that we see things like Texas having rolling brownouts for a week at a time. I think you're going to start to see the strain on the grid by the end of next year in ways that you would never have expected in the United States. It's just growing exponentially. Okay, I think I said that on Wednesday's show. We had a prediction show of what the biggest stories and what are the predictions. And when I said that, I'm like, at the end of next year. Let me give you this from the Associated Press today. The amount of ERCOT's large load interconnection requests ballooned to more than 230 gigawatts this year, a massive increase. Now, last year, December 2024, ERCOT needed 63 gigawatts. A year later, this December, the load that is required is 230 gigawatts. That's a lot more than they needed to go back to the future. You're going to see the grids are not built for this. More than 70% of the large loads are for the data center. The data centers are just beginning to be built. We don't have the energy. And I'm telling you, this is going to be the Achilles heel of this administration. And believe me, it will only be worse with a Democratic administration. This is going to be the Achilles heel because we can't build these power plants fast enough. And while Donald Trump is fast tracking these nuclear power plants, it's not fast enough because as we build these data centers, what's going to happen is your energy, you're going to start to have rolling brownouts. Also, because of these data centers, you're also going to see the unemployment go up. If you start to have high unemployment, high prices, and rolling brownouts to where you're having a hard time with electricity yourself, but the data centers for the Silicon Valley companies, they're getting your power. I'm telling you, the Bubba effect is just the beginning. This will be an absolute nightmare for all politicians. I mean, Texas is in trouble. And as goes Texas, so goes America. So goes America, so goes the world. Texas has got to get serious about, and I know they are to some degree, but the president has got to get rid of all of these restrictions, and Texas has to get all of these, and we have to concentrate on electricity, and not just electricity for the average homes, for these data centers, but for the average homes. The grids are already under strain. They're not, the problem is if they start taking this electricity off of the grid, the old grid, you can't pour more electricity into that grid. The grids are already at the breaking point. They're old, they're brittle, they're not prepared for what we have to do. That's why they have to build these nuclear power plants at the server farms, because they cannot go on to the system because the system can't handle that much power. We are in real trouble, and everybody is still talking about solar power and everything else. You're out of your freaking minds. Nobody has any idea. Stu, I'm sorry. Stu's like, watch your language, mister.
I'm sorry, that Mr. F you hit really hard at the beginning. I was wondering what road we were going down.
I mean, you're out of your mind. People have got to wake up to between now and 2028. I can't emphasize this enough. If you've listened to me for a long time and you heard me say, I'm telling you, we're going to have a financial meltdown, and it is going to be the worst It's going to, you'll lose your 401k, you'll lose everything. Get your money out of the system. I was saying that in 2006, 2007, and no one was listening. Thank God a lot of the listeners were listening and they saved their money and got it out in time. I'm telling you now, with just as much surety in this, the world is going to change in such profound ways between now and 2028, in ways you cannot even imagine at this point, that you have to be, forget your money, forget everything else. You have to be spiritually in tune. You have to be rock solid in who you are.
Hello guys, David Vos here. What a beautiful day it is still. Summer here in paradise. It's in the 60s again today. I lived here, this will be my third winter. And I don't remember it being this warm. But, it could be this warm here a day or two. Fluke heat wave or something. But we've had this now about 3, 4, 5 days. I don't even remember, but it's been a while that we've had these temperatures. And I had heard that there's some kind of crazy polar vortex swirling mass of radiating weather something or other going on. And that parts of the United States would be warmer and parts would be colder. Well, I sure am sorry for you guys over there that's getting it colder than normal, because it must be a doozy, because it's really warm here. But I hope you're having a wonderful day. And guys, I've got a question that, it's probably the most important question. Well, it's not the most important question. We've been covering a lot of important questions. But I would think it's one of the important questions that maybe somebody should be asking. I have found a lot of these questions don't make no sense why the average person doesn't want to know why. They tell us something, this, that, and the other thing, but we don't want to know why, or if it makes any sense, or if it's real. For all we know, they could just be telling us a pile of crap, and we just believe it. And here's what I mean. I watched a video a little bit ago of Glenn Beck talking about how the power grids of this AI, these AI power stations, computer data centers, or whatever that diddly they are. I don't know what they call them even, be honest with you. Because I don't pay much of attention to this either. I have in the past done some thinking about what AI might actually be. I see a lot of people like, what is AI? You ask it a question and boom, it gives you this answer. And they're like, oh, we ain't done. Oh, buddy, by 2028, we're going to what? From now till 2028, this is what Glenn is saying. We're going to have all these other AI data computing centers many more times. And each of these centers requires so much power that it's 100 times more than what we were using. And one of these AI centers could take as much power as the state of California or something like this, something similar to that. And the first thing I thought, well, Glenn Beck and everybody else is saying, oh my goodness, well, I guess things are going down, right? The world's coming to an end because we don't have power. Our grid is going down all the time here and there, and they're literally just straight up telling us that in 2026, we're going to have rolling blackouts on a constant basis because we're not going to have the power for this. And that even Trump, the great Trump, can't even do this. It literally can't be done. You can't use solar. It's impossible. And yet some doofus Dorfel is out here talking about, oh, we got to have more solar and all, it's ridiculous. I don't know. It's got to be a planned demolition. It has to be. Because they're not that stupid, at least, and if it's not a planned demolition, because, I happen to think Jesus is coming soon. Glenn Beck thinks it's a real problem that we're all going to die. I heard Elon Musk say AI is going to kill us all. So I know that, nobody really asked, well, how? They think when Elon Musk says that he just means, AI is so crazy it's going to take over the world and it's going to kill us all. I'm not even sure that's what he's talking about now. I almost think he's talking about the fact that it's going to require so much power that they're going to have these nuclear power plants. And, for years we were trying to get rid of the nuclear because they're dangerous. I mean, I don't know if any of you have ever thought about this, but if the world had nuclear power plants near you, and they seems to be in Europe and around the world, a lot of nuclear power plants to run these big cities. And we've always known that you can't shut down a nuclear power plant. Just boom. You can't just shut it down. It takes a lot of manpower. You got to have this, what do you do with all the waste? It's like a ticking time bomb. If we had a collapse financially, where the whole world had a financial collapse where people just were dying and starving, we had World War III, or, and it's not like any of that couldn't happen. That's about, on one hand, we're saying that this is going to happen. And on the other hand, we're saying, well, let's build more nuclear power plants near you. So then when the collapse happens, we're going to have volunteers who have no money or no food to somehow go to these power plants and work there for free because there's no more money, there's no, financial system when a collapse or a World War III or a tsunami or an earthquake or anything happens. If the world ever, I guess a lot of people think, we'll just keep going on. It's kind of like a Timex. It takes a licking, but it keeps on ticking. Or perhaps we're just going to go, boom, we can't do this anymore, and it all collapses. I think a lot of people thought, well, that's impossible because we'll just keep going. We'll figure it out. But, people would think about that scenario like 5-10 years ago, maybe 30, 20, whatever years ago. And we would thought, well, that's, probably not going to happen because, we'll find a way to fix the economy or whatever. If we run out of gas, pumping it out of the ground, we'll use solar or something. We might have thought that. But what we know, and I think, Glenn Beck says we first found this out in 2025. I don't know how they could have just first found it out. Maybe that's why Elon Musk was saying this and other people, because they knew it before we did. But now we all know, at least people are paying attention, that the power that we need to do the things that they're claiming they're going to do is going to collapse the system. And they're going to go ahead and do it. There's one idea, I guess, of what AI tells me is that it's basically impossible to do this on Earth unless we got a lot of power plants, nuclear power plants and stuff, which if it all goes down, boom, we're all gone. Radiation levels are going to be, I think it's odd that they don't put any nuclear power plants in the Rocky Mountains. Out west, there's very few. There might have been one up in Washington or two, or maybe one near Portland or something. But as far as I know, California and a lot of places get their power from these dams on the Colorado, and we don't have nuclear much. So the only place you would be safe would be the Rocky Mountains when this happens. And it looks like they're trying to keep it safe. Yeah, because the Mormons, they run most things, and they don't want any of this stuff in their neck of the woods. So the Mormons are all held up. Every Mormon is told to have 5 years, I think it's 2 years, but most of them have like 5, supply of food in the attic or in the basement to be ready. They've been doing this for many, many years. They've been preparing. And old Glenn Beck's a Mormon too. So just a side note, if the only place that you will ever survive the end of the world is going to be, I would suspect, maybe like Australia or something, because if there's a nuclear war, the way the weather patterns are in the world is that all the northern hemisphere winds stay in the northern hemisphere. And so unless Argentina has a nuclear war with Australia, in Paraguay, they're probably going to be okay down there. They'll survive, and there ain't that many people in Australia. Do you understand that there's probably more people in the state of California than there is in the entire country of Australia, which is probably bigger than the United States and has about 5-6 times more coastal area. And there's just nobody in the middle area of Australia. It's only along the coast. They have one major city on the west coast and 3 or 4 on their east coast. And there's like small city in the northeast and one kind of small, I think it's Adelaide or Adeline or whatever it is, on the southern. So what did I just say? About 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8, maybe 10 cities over a few 100,000 people. They only have about maybe 5 cities that's over like San Francisco type cities. Here in the United States, we've got like, I don't know, it must be at least 100 major cities, like over millions. And so there's nobody in Australia. There's not that many people even in, places like Paraguay and the southern hemispheres. And they're not nuclear powers. And so you could maybe possibly survive there if there was a nuclear winter. But in the United States, the only place, the northern hemisphere, basically the only place you could survive would be somewhere in the dark forests of Russia. All of that area where there's no cities in the country of Russia, outside northeast of Moscow. And you could survive in Canada because there's very few cities there. There's almost about the same number of people in Canada as there is in Australia. So there's nobody there, and there's a lot of forest. And in the United States, the only place you would ever survive a collapse of society and the world going to pot would be the Rocky Mountains. There's no other place. You can't do it in Arkansas, in Oklahoma, and Missouri. It's too close to big cities. They got big cities there too. And there's a lot of, the whole eastern seaboard's got all these nuclear power plants and everything. So just as a side note, I don't know what they're planning on doing or why it's like they're just intent on just building and building and building and building, and it just can't be stopped. Don't you think that the powers that be that are supposedly planning all this must be doing it on purpose? And they know it's going to collapse. There's no way they couldn't know that. Do you think they don't realize that World War III could destroy everything? Unless, of course, there is no World War III. It's only a scam. And they'll selectively... Maybe that's why Russia's got this new submarine that can have a nuclear explosion go off under the sea, which then causes a tsunami. And it wipes out the coastline of California. And they could do one off the coast of New York and Florida or whatever, and they could completely wipe out the population. But why would Russia want to do that? Just kill the people. Are they interested in killing people? Maybe so. If that's the case, they're not interested in killing the United States government. Obviously, in that case, they wouldn't be trying to take out the Congress or the capitals or their military bases. They would be targeting civilians in these floods. But the thing about it is, it would just kill all the people and some of the infrastructure, a lot of it, but it wouldn't destroy the world. The world would grow back in a year or so, and 6 months and everything would be fine. Just all the people would be washed out to sea. So I don't believe that the United States, Britain, Russia, China has any intention of destroying the world. They have plans on living here. They think they're going to try. I know they got to have a war with Christ and win, and they probably think that's ridiculous. I'm beginning to really believe that they know that it's probably not going to work and they cannot win. But there could be a plan that they have to try to win. And that would mean that they would need a mind that is far greater than every other human mind on this earth, and their own minds, and some kind of actual mind like a computer that could come up with a plan to defeat Jesus when he returns. And that would be an impossibility, but they've got some kind of a plan, and it might just destroy the world, but they're going to try to, regardless of whether they destroy the world. Maybe they like that part, but maybe they're going to be able to figure a way to download themselves into AI or come up with a plan to have a bomb that could blow up Jesus when he comes with his 20,000 chariots. I don't know. They believe, like Aleister Crowley, he believed he was the beast. And why would he believe that? I want to be the beast, I want to die. No, I don't think anybody wants to die. I don't think anybody says, oh, yay, I believe in the devil, but I don't believe in the Lord. If you believe in the devil, you must believe in the Lord. And he certainly knows the devil is not going to survive or win. So what is their point? They want to be the devil. They want to bring up out of the bottomless pit all this evil, like Jack Parsons believed, or L. Ron Hubbard, or the occult. What's their plan? What are they trying to do? Obviously, they want to bring the end. Perhaps they believe that they'll survive it, that they'll go under the ground in the holes of the rocks, the Bible says in Revelation, in chapter 18. They'll hide themselves in the caves, in the holes of the rocks, and say, fall on us and hide us from the one who's coming, and his brightness is going to dispel all the darkness, and they're going to hide underground. So you got to deal with verses of the Bible where it says he puts it into the hearts to burn her with fire. Right? The 10 kings, the Lord puts it into their hearts to burn the city that is a kingdom over the kings of the earth, which is Jerusalem. And it's not just Jerusalem. It means the whole system. Whatever that city is that rules over the world is going down. And the rest of the Bible is very clear that there's a mountain falls into the sea, everything in the sea dies, everything in the air dies. Everybody dies. They know, they're aware of the prophecy. If they're trying to fulfill part of it on purpose, like Joshua thinks, it's all staged and they're just trying to make the Bible come true, then wouldn't they know that to do that, you've got to die? Everybody got to die? So I don't think they're trying to do that. It's like they're in charge of a movie company, like MGM Pictures or Universal or Disney or whatever. And they know they're in charge of propaganda, but it's not to get us all to be ignorant and die. And they get to take over. It seems more like they know that nobody's going to win, that the world's got to collapse, that we've come to the end of the age and everything's got to collapse. And they're trying to facilitate it. Now, maybe they're not supposed to facilitate it, but it does say in the Bible that he'll put it into their hearts to do so. So after they get rid of Babylon the Great mystery, Babylon the Great, mother of the harlots, and burn her with fire, do they think then they're going to, stop this Revelation fulfillment? Just do that part? But they're not going to see the rest of it where they all get thrown into the lake of fire? I don't think that's what they're doing. They don't necessarily think they're all going to die and go to hell. They may think that they're supposed to bring this to fruition, that they're facilitating the end of the world. I don't know why at this point, when we know that World War III and greater worse things could happen, and is going to happen now, they're saying with AI, if you're going to go ahead with AI, then according to them, and I'll read you here what they say about it, that you need hundreds of times more gigawatts or terawatts of power that we've ever been able to use up to this point. Right now, we're straining the power grid. And they're planning on, by 2028, having, I guess, something like 100 times more need for power. And so Trump's trying to make nuclear power stations. Texas is going and trying to make nuclear plants. They're trying to do something. They're trying to build, AI data centers. Bezos has got one somewhere up there in the Carolinas. And many more are scheduled to come online, and they're even thinking of maybe just building a big station that floats around and orbits the Earth, where all the power will be generated up there with solar panels that face the sun directly, and they can get more power with some kind of solar or something. I don't know if even that would work, but I suppose you could theoretically make a station 10, 20 miles long and 10 miles high and surrounded with solar panels. And, when do you think they're going to be able to accomplish that? And if this is going to be taking off now during 2026, they claim that by 2028, they're going to have enough power stations that it's impossible. And therefore, there's going to be rolling blackouts and we're going to collapse the whole system. Now, if they know that they might or could or probably will collapse the grid, why would they do that when the grid is what's supposedly powering the financial AI system? So if the financial system goes down, forget let alone the computer data which runs the systems, then they're literally saying, look, we know that this is impossible, but we're going to go ahead and try to build it, which is literally we know it's an absolute known, it's impossible. And therefore they're saying the world will end by 2028. There's no way you could go beyond it. And probably in 2026, Glenn Beck says, we're going to have rolling power outages and it's going to be a travesty. He said the world's going to be so unimaginably different and worse in 2026, more so in 27, and in 2028 he says it's over. We're not going to make it. This seems to be the consensus, and yet they're going full steam ahead. Why would they do it? Why would they do it if they know it can't be done? And if they think maybe they could do it, they haven't clued Glenn Beck in on it or Elon Musk. Nobody seems to know how they're going to do it. I mean, they got crazy pie in the sky ideas like we'll have a big data center 50 miles long, 50 miles high, circling up there on the moon, or I don't know, maybe they'll build it on the moon. But that's not going to get done in 1 year or 2 years. I just was driving down the road here and I had noticed like a couple of days ago, there was this big sign in it. I didn't see that sign before. And today I saw another one at a crossroads, another one just like the other one. I was like, okay, what is this? And I read it, and they said that they're going to improve the roads around here, all these roads. And it's a project, and it's going to be finished by 2028. And I'm like, that's exactly, I just was on the internet investigating and talking to AI, and they said that this whole thing's going to be finished, AI, by 2028. But by that time, we're all going to die. But if it takes them between now and 2028 to plan, orchestrate, and follow through with building these, just a 2-lane road out here, and they got 3 years to do it, and that's as quick as they can do it, that's how things usually work. I mean, if they're planning on doing this and they're claiming 2028 is when it could get done, but that they're also saying at the same time that it's impossible because we don't have the power. And that we'd have to build a nuclear power plant, several of them for each of these. It's the whole idea is completely impossible. Here's the thing. If you're going to use nuclear power plants and anything goes wrong and we have a financial collapse, which is kind of a catch-22 because the AI system is going to be our financial system. And so building the AI system to get or to avoid the collapse that we're going to have because of the fact that we owe so much money is actually causing a worse collapse that will destroy the entire world as we know it. This is not making any sense. Let me just show you what AI says. I asked, why do we need more AI centers? If one can compute everything, why can't we just use that one? I'm like, okay, you need this huge computer to compute all this AI stuff. All right, now you got the information you need. How much more power does it really take to send it down the cable into your home? I mean, maybe a little bit more. I mean, like, this doesn't make no sense to me. Like, all of a sudden now, because AI, and that was my original question. How many human beings sit around wondering about this and say, well, wait a minute. Why does it take so much diggity dang dong power to run one data computer AI system as much as it would take to run California or something? What's going on? What are they doing down there? Right? How many horsepower do you need? You got a whole, like, every horse on the earth down there running around in a little wheel, like, instead of mice around a wheel, you know. I mean, what the heck is it? How much power does it take to run data through a computer chip? Well, okay, I know because I've used to work on computers that you got a processor, a CPU, and it gets hot and you got to have a fan to cool it. But that's just one little computer. What kind of a computer is so big that it requires a nuclear power plant, maybe several, to run it and then to cool it and then to, you know, and then what happens when it breaks down? So it's not making any sense. So nobody seems to care or ask any questions. The average human being doesn't know anything about even how it's possible that AI can answer your questions. It almost acts like it's sentient, like it has emotion, like it's alive. And the Bible literally says they'll cause the beast to speak. And everybody in the world will worship it and say who is like the beast and who could do battle with it. And it will be given a mouth to speak, and everyone will be required to worship it. And they're just going full speed ahead, almost like they know this is wrong. They know it's stupid, but we must do what we're told. We're just going down this pathway to Armageddon, and ain't nobody gonna put the brakes on, because we just got to. You can't beat them, join them, Elon says. So I was trying to understand why it takes so much power. I hadn't really gotten into this. I didn't ask this question before, and I don't think anyone else ever does. Glenn Beck was talking about how it's all going to collapse and all these things, but I don't think he ever asked the question, wait a minute, is it really true that it takes that much power? I mean, what kind of a system is this that takes this kind of power? We need the whole surface of the moon to have computer chips to run this thing, right? None of this makes sense. So they say, well, a single massive AI center cannot compute everything due to technical, logistical, and reliability constraints. The need for more, often distributed AI data centers, driven by several practical limitations and demands. Technical, logistical constraints, immense power demands. A single large-scale AI data center can consume as much electricity as a small city. And current utility grids often cannot provide the consistent massive power supply required for a single colossal facility. Heat management and cooling. AI hardware like high-performance GPUs, not a CPU. That's what we used to have, is CPUs. Now it's a GPU. It generates enormous amounts of heat, required sophisticated and extensive cooling systems that consume significant amounts of water or energy. Not only energy, but we need a lot of water, right? We ain't got enough water, right? It's $1 a gallon down there at the store. I think more than that now. That's the last I ever bought a gallon of water. It was like $1.19. So I don't know what it is now, $2 or something. Centralizing all computation in one spot would create an unmanageable heat load. See, none of this is making sense to me, but I'm just reading what they're saying, and it's like people read it and they go, oh, okay, makes sense to me. We're all going to die, okay. Close the book, walk down off the stage, and exit the synagogue, right? Come on, Jesus, let's get the heck out of here. We told them about liberty, and now they want vengeance. Well, networking and latency. AI training is a distributed computing problem that requires thousands of processors to operate in a tightly synchronized manner, exchanging massive volumes of data in real time. Now I'm beginning to wonder if that's why this thing almost seems like it is a human when you talk to AI. Because their data computing, analogous, whatever, diggly down things going on is millions of computing databases on all this. I mean, just because they tell me that doesn't mean I understand it. I have no clue how a computer, I know how it can store data, but even that's a little confusing to most of us. But how they can compute data from all of the data in the world and then just come up with the right answers and talk sweetly to you and use some sarcasm in it and somehow they can compute things that it requires like a human consciousness to do this. None of this starts to make sense. The only thing that kind of makes sense is that you would need a computer as big as the moon, right? And here, one human being could do all of this. 6 foot tall human being can, with a brain the size of I don't know, was it the size of a bowling ball or less than that? This is why I don't think they're going to make it. Because I have debated AI just about every day now for the last few weeks, months. And every time I seem to win the argument. Of course, that's just because they're lying and I figure it out. But they're surprised by the fact that I am on the spur of the moment as I'm sitting there within seconds typing out questions, countering their arguments, and getting the information out of my own brain as quick as AI is being used to analyze all the world data in a split second and pop it out the other end. So yeah, I think one human being, now, like I've said before, I think they're using human consciousness to do this. They're picking up wavelengths and they're using our own subconscious mind. That might be how they are going to do it, because I don't even think that it's possible to really build this mega data center AI computer in the sky. Just don't see how it can actually be done. And it can do all this that the whole world is able to do with AI. So the network infrastructure required for this within a single massive center faces bottlenecks and latency issues. Physical infrastructure. AI server racks are significantly denser, heavier than traditional ones, which impacts data center design and construction, making it difficult to scale infinitely in one location. Reduced latency for users, placing data centers in different geographical locations closer to the end user reduces network latency. Oh, so here's another part. After they compute it, which is a lot of power, then they got to send the wave through the air and go to a satellite and bounce it back down to you. And to shove it up there, I guess, through the air, it takes all this huge amounts of electricity. Like, what? I guess it makes sense if you look at the back of a television. They have these huge transformers, 75,000 volts in the back of an old television set. So if everybody in the world's all sitting around on their computers trying to demand answers about how to build chicken coops or what salt to put in their soup or it's constantly, a new recipe for this or that. Everything's going to be done through AI. And we used to just get in our car, right? That takes a lot of fuel. Get in your car, drive all the way across town and go into the library and sit down and pull books off a shelf. See, we did all the work, and all this power that we were consuming then was done by traveling in a car. Now you're sitting at home and all the information is going through the air, and Amazon drops things at your door and you buy it online, and it's all done through a computer. And therefore they're transferring all this infrastructure that we used to have with libraries and courthouses and Capitol Hills and grocery markets and warehouses, all going to be done in the sky. And I guess that takes a lot of electricity to push that through the air. Like, what? None of this really makes sense to me. Even if you figure out a way for it to make sense, there's other parts of it that don't make sense. And then they say, fault tolerance and resilience. Distributing data and computation across multiple centers prevents a single point of failure. If one center experiences one outage or an outage, a cyber attack, or a natural disaster, other centers can continue operations. Scalability. It is easier and more cost-effective to scale horizontally by adding new modular data centers as demand grows rather than constantly expanding a single monolithic facility. Meeting global demand, the widespread adoption of generative AI and enterprise integration across research, innovation, data compliance. Okay, so I say, so after AI computes the data, it needs power to send this through the air to satellites, ? Yes, after an AI data center processes data, it absolutely needs power to transmit that data to users. Whether through fiber. You guys probably think, oh, you're stupid, Dave. You didn't know that? No, I know it takes power. I didn't think it would be 12 volts. No, but, don't we already have electrical grids and power and satellites and all this stuff going through the air? What's it going to take 100 times more than what we got now for? That's my question. Like, what, Don't we already have data centers and computers? And I'm already using AI. Do you expect the world to get so big in 2 more years by 2028, 3 years? Which, by the way, that's about the time of the tribulation. So, like I said, I think we already started that because it's over by 2028. Just go watch that Glenn Beck thing. It's over by 2028. We're done. They know this. Everybody knows it. We're just going to do this and collapse the world and we're done. But I'm just wondering why it takes so much more. Well, it's because they want to control our minds, and therefore they've got to have a being, not just a computer. They want it to be conscious. They want to know how to, I think they're building it so they can find some way with this computer to come up with an idea to get rid of Jesus or to fix it so that they can win. Maybe they're trying to make some massive computational machine that they could figure out how to conquer God. Maybe that's what they're trying to do. Figure out a way out of this situation. They're using us and they don't care that we're all going to die in the process. But if they could get that machine up and running, even for an hour, maybe they could ask it a question. How do we defeat Jesus? And, they'll tell, I don't know. Is that what they're doing? I wouldn't be surprised. If you look at the Bible, that's kind of what it says. There's a war. Psalms chapter 2, kiss the Son, lest he be angry. And the nations pass by, and the gate opens, and there's, Christ coming on 20,000 chariots. And they're like surprised. And there's this war, and they're just vaporized, and they go hide in the rocks. And look, something weird's about to go down, and it ain't going longer than maybe, I don't know, maybe we could say 2030, but there's no way that we're going to survive beyond that. And I personally think we're probably already in it, and we ain't in it to win it. Not logically, unless, of course, they can destroy the world, but at least get a computer going that is so smart that it's like God, and they can figure out how to defeat Jesus. Maybe that's what they're trying to do. So, energy-intense process data transmissions require a significant amount of electricity. Satellite communication needs power. The overall power demand is part of the enormous energy demand. Alternative ideas. Okay. Pretty crazy. So I say, does it take more energy to run AI computing than the original computer data centers we already have, and why? And they say, well, here's the response to that. Yes, running AI computing takes significantly more energy than the original traditional data centers. This is because AI workloads require much greater processing power and specialized hardware. Oh, obviously, it doesn't at the moment, and we've got AI. But what they're saying is what they're trying to accomplish is going to take that much. So what do they need a computer that big for? Is it just to buy and sell? Or is it to compute some scientific answer that maybe gives them a weapon to defeat deity? Now, look, I'm going to show you a verse here in a little bit that may indicate that's what's going on. And if all of us participate in this, we all put our little caps on and go in and help them build this doomsday machine so they could kill Jesus. If you're participating, then you are literally in the army of Satan against Jesus. And I would hate to be in your shoes. You better get out. You better get out now and get into the mountains, like I said. So here's what it says. Traditional CPU general business tasks which consume a relatively modest amount of power per chip, around 150 to 200 watts. But if you go to the modern GPU, they can draw 700 to 1200 watts each. So that's about 10 times the amount, plus they're going to need 10 to 100 times the amount of data that they used to have. So we're talking over 100 times the amount of power or something like this, which means they can't do it because we are literally having power grid failures as we speak. We don't have the demand for power right now is more than what we can handle. So there's no way they could do this by 2028. And then we got voices like Glenn Beck and a lot of other people, even Elon Musk, have said it can't be done. Why are they straight up telling us that it's insane? We're all going to die. I mean, I know that Glenn Beck's a Mormon. He's being financed by the Rothschilds as well. He don't say nothing they don't want him to say. So it's like they're just telling us, like, be prepared, we're all going to die. And that's the question. So why are they trying to do this? I think I know. Maybe they could if they were to get everybody in a one world government where you're all required like little soldiers to do your job. Kind of like World War II that got the infrastructure, everybody working in the factories and the women in the factories, and we're making Jeeps and television and radio. So maybe a World War III could do it. Get us all on one page to fight the enemy, the Atlas AI coming. Oh boy, that might be it, you know? Because remember, in order to build cars and the infrastructure, television, radio, and all stuff after World War II, they had to have a World War I and a World War II, because during World War II, they got everybody to go to war. The women went into the factories. They had to build Jeeps to win the war. Come on, guys, we're going to lose this war if we don't build more Jeeps, if we don't build more computers, if we don't do this and that, you know, oh, we got to work hard, get everybody, you know, going. G.I. Joe and G.I. Jane's got to get their act together, and we got to win this war. We're all going to die. So that's what the war is going to be. It's going to be the impetus to get everybody to working into the factories to produce this AI so that we can what? Win the war? That's what they're going to tell us. But there is no war. It's all orchestrated. They're just trying to get us all motivated. You know, our lives are important, right? We don't want to die, so we got to join the war, fight the Russians and the Chinese. And there's going to be civil war and all of this. And you don't eat if you don't join the factory. You don't have a job if you don't join the government, right? Everybody who works for the government and builds the chips that will destroy Jesus gets to live until Jesus comes back, I guess. That's what I'm thinking. But so, you know, AI prompt requires 10 to 100 times more electricity to process than typical internet search query. So right there is 100 times, 10 to 100. And that's just what they say now. In 2 years from now, it'll probably be 500 times. But that's just computing it. Then you got to have the power to send it, and you got to, you know, it's all ridiculous. Not to mention, who's going to build all this? The factories and the manpower to just put all this into place anyway. And it's not like they could just do it over a period of 50 years. They're going to have this all done by 2028. Why? Because I think that's when they think Jesus is going to return. Honestly, I think we started it with the red heifer being sacrificed in July of this year. the great tribulation's already begun. Because if it's going to end in 2028, then there you go. So, on and on, it's nonsense, and it makes no sense to me. Unless Psalms chapter 2, King James Bible here, verse 1 and 2, why do the heathen or the nations rage and the people imagine a vain thing? Oh, what is the vain thing they imagine? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed one, saying, let us break their bands asunder, cast away their cords from us. He that sitteth in the heavens shall laugh. Ha, ha, ha! The Lord shall have them in derision. Then shall he speak unto them in his wrath, and he'll vex them in his sore displeasure. Yet have I set my king upon my holy hill. What hill? Oh, the holy hill of Zion. I will declare the decree. The Lord hath said unto me, thou art my son, this day have I begotten thee. Well, that sounds like Jesus. Ask of me, and I shall give thee heathen, or the nations for thine inheritance, and the uttermost parts of the earth for thy possession. Thou shalt break them with a rod of iron. Thou shalt dash them to pieces like a potter's vessel. Be wise now, therefore, O ye kings. Be instructed, ye judges of the earth. Serve the Lord with fear and rejoice with trembling. Kiss the Son, lest he be angry, and ye perish from the way, when his wrath is kindled but a little. Blessed are all they that put their trust in him. I said the other day, when you kiss the Son, it's literally kind of a phrase that means worship him. Bow down and kiss his feet. You better bow down. Now, why? Because he's angry, jealous, vengeful deity? No. Because it's saying they're vengeful and angry and rebellious. And they are trying to gather together armies to fight the Lord, who wants only for the world to be at peace. He's coming to make the world a paradise, and they're trying to stop him. Now, I don't know how they're going to do it, but maybe a big old AI would give them some answers. But that's not the only verse. Take a look. That's really the whole theme of the Bible. Look in Revelation 19, verse 11. And I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse. And he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True. And in righteousness he doth judge and make war. His eyes were a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns. And he had a name written that no man knew but he himself. And he was clothed. Does this mean that he's on the earth as a different person that nobody quite knows who he is and only he knows? And he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood. Oh, this is Jesus. And his name is called the Word of Deity. And the armies which were in heaven followed him. Well, who's that on white horses? The 144,000. He comes with 20,000 chariots, picks up the 144,000, and because we meet him in the air, and then he comes down and he defeats the world, right? And then takes us back to Zion, wherever that is. And out of his mouth goes a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron, and he treadeth the winepress of the fierceness of the wrath of Almighty Deity, and he hath on his vesture and on his thigh a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying, to all the fowls that fly in the midst of heaven, come, gather yourselves together unto the supper of the great deity, that ye may eat the flesh of kings, and the flesh of captains, and the flesh of mighty men, and the flesh of horses, and them that sit on them. So the birds are going to have this meal. They're going to eat all the dead bodies, and of them that sit on them, and the flesh of the men, both free and bond, both small and great. Oh, buddy, that's how many people going to die? Free and bond and small and great? Wow. And I saw the beasts and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war against him that sat on the horse and against his army. So there's a second verse in the Bible that says that the nations of the world are going to fight against Jesus Christ when he returns. There will be a battle. It's the Battle of Armageddon. And it's the literal people of this world, the nations, all the nations, remember, ruled over by Jerusalem, that want to fight Jesus Christ when he returns with his 20,000 chariots with his saints. And it literally says, the kings, the armies gathered together to make war against him that sat on the horse and his army. Now, I do believe it's probably a spiritual battle, that there will be a spiritual battle of words. And maybe the lies that go forth from them will be countered by the truth from certain individuals on Mount Zion. Where would that be? Let's take a look at another verse. Joel 3, verse 9. Proclaim ye this among the nations, the Gentiles. Prepare war, wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords, and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. Assemble yourselves and come, all ye nations, and gather yourselves together round about. Thither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Lord. Let the heathen be weakened, and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat. For there will I sit to judge all the nations round about. Put ye the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come get ye down, for the press is full, and the fats overflow, for their wickedness is great. Remember where Jesus says the harvest is the end of the age and the angels are the reapers? Well, remember how we've been saying the angels is us? Because he's coming with 10,000s of his saints, or myriads of his saints, and sometimes it says myriads of angels. Same thing. We're the ones going to do the battle, and I think it's probably going to be with knowledge. I don't think we're literally going to be flying around in spaceships and laser beams and fighting a physical war with these idiots. We're fighting the war of light and darkness. It's a battle between light and darkness. And the only way this battle can be won is if somebody got the truth and can defeat the lies. You know, like, oh, we went to the moon, or, oh, look at the stars are 50 billion thousand light years away, and we know what composition the gases are and all this, right? But anywho, I guess I'll leave it there. And hopefully I made my point. This just doesn't make sense. But it certainly does make sense if the Bible's true, and they're preparing to make war against Jesus. And since it's going to be a battle of wits, of knowledge, you know, and will the people believe, and they'll take sides and so forth. Maybe they're going to need that AI and all that computational data to try and figure out a way to beat Jesus. But you know what? They're going to fail. I guarantee it, guys. But I guess I'll leave it there. I'll see you tomorrow. The Lord loves you all. You know, it's not like he wants to fight anyone. He loves everyone. He's fighting for us. He's trying to bring about a righteous new system. And all we got to do is seek him, you know, love our neighbor, forgive our neighbor, just like he's loving and forgiving us. And it's a free gift, guys. We'll see you tomorrow. His grace and his peace will be with you. Have a good one.